Welcome everybody to the Bathurst 500K presented by Race2Play.com. This is a racing simulation online auto race featuring the R-Factor racing simulation. We're going to be going 500 kilometers around Bathurst. That is Mount Panorama in Australia. This is a very popular race. The real-life race is happening this weekend, in fact. We have 13 drivers from 13 countries, is what I'm getting at today. A nice big field, drivers from 13 countries. Tristan Bayliss is our pole sitter. He set a new track record at 2 minutes 8 seconds, .816. Enos Dowdy qualified second. Enos was the former track record holder, and he would have bested his track record, except Tristan bested that, so Tristan is the new track record holder. It is Saturday morning in the United States. Our drivers in Europe are competing late Saturday afternoon. We have a driver in Australia. He is competing at 2 o'clock Sunday morning. He got up. He's been watching the real live event coverage down there on his local channels in Australia to get psyched up for the race. That's Andy Graydon, of course. Okay, the cars are finishing warm-up, and they're getting their final instructions from the event steward. All the official events at Race2Play.com are marshaled by live event stewards to make sure they run on time and the competition standards and rules of conduct are maintained. Stewards giving the drivers their final instructions now. We will be doing a straight-up standing start in this race. We'll see the cars grid up, and when the lights go out, it's go time for everybody. The cars are taking their spots on the grid now. I'm Todd Weiss. I'm sitting here with Tim McArthur in the broadcast booth.
All right. We're ready to rock here. We got about 15 seconds before the green flag. I think standing start. We'll watch this from one of our lead cars, in-car. How about that? This is from Eduardo Prado in P3. Looking at Tristan on the pole ahead.
Enos Dowdy from Croatia has made the grid. The lights are out and the cars are go.
Watch a wheel spin for minutes there. See Felix really squeezed himself in. Turn one. Pulled it off all right. Tristan already pulled down a little bit of a lead.
Mark Felix dive down the inside there in turn one on the start. Capture a couple of positions there.
Car made it through turn two just fine. And climbing up the hill at this point for the first lap. Real risky at this first lap, and with the cold tires, cold brakes. It's kind of with everybody blocking each other's view. See, these walls are right here on the track, so hopefully everybody's just going to play it calm here the first lap or two.
Now this track has a lot of variety in it. It winds up and down Mount Panorama in Australia to the top of the mountain. Now you see them on the downward plunge through a series of S's. Now we have a pair of multi-driver teams in this race. Last year we did the Bathurst 1000, and we required drivers running on teams to get together in the same location for real live driver swaps, which was a really neat way for Race2Play members to get together and have an excuse to have a barbecue and race together. Tristan Bayliss here, the pole sitter and race leader, is on one of the multi-car teams with Kent Welker. Charlie Parker and Andrew Baranek are in the other multi-car team. Actually, all 4 drivers are gathered at Charlie Parker's house in California right now, with a pair of PCs running these two-driver teams.
Look at that first lap, everybody now from turn 1 and heading down that long straight. There's some of these cars here. Great shot of how long that straightaway is. This is into turn 2.
Now, Enes Dowdy from Croatia, he qualified on the pole in last year's Bathurst 1000 and was leading the race rather handily when he had some mechanical difficulties in the form of a internet disconnection, which I'm sure we've all been there, and it's not a happy experience, especially leading such a big race as Enes was. He qualified second and is running second in this race here today. And hopefully we'll see him at the finish line as well. Last year's race was won by Steve Davis, who drove the entire distance solo. Myself, Tim McArthur, and John Onofre ran a multi-car team, and we finished second in last year's event. But I can tell you, getting together with your fellow drivers in the same room and running one of these events is unparalleled. It's a blast.
Yeah, we had a real good time. We never got around to firing up the barbecue.
6 hours was a long time.
all 3 of us spent it staring at the same monitor. So.
Yeah. This year's race was halved to 500 for the purposes of this broadcast. We should expect the race to go right in the neighborhood of 3 hours.
Felix has been pretty aggressive these 2 laps that they've completed so far. He's pushed really hard to get ahead of Enes. Let's see how he's getting his car really out of shape. Just 10-10s right here. Prado behind, drafting up. Felix pushing Prado right off track. Pushed him into the grass, protecting his position. Watch this replay here of Felix really pushing Prado to the limit there. Watching from a replay.
Marco Felix, he's 17 years old. He's from Portugal. He's driving for Team ORM, powered by New Car. His teammate Hugo Gomez is currently running 9th.
Might have to rein in Marco a little bit there. It's a bit on the wrong side of the aggressive line when it comes to lap 2 of an 80-lap race.
Long race. It'd be a shame to end it on lap 3 here.
Yeah, just trying to protect the position against Prado, which we know there's no protection anyway. He's going to get you sooner or later if it happens now or 2 hours from now.
Yeah, Prado is the fourth winningest driver at Race2Play. He has 115 wins in his driving career at Race2Play. That's out of 290 starts. Tristan Bayless is the 3rd winningest driver.
I'm just going to cycle through some of these cars in the back. There's actually a couple decent battles going on here. Mark Carty, Michael Vert, and John Wheel, nose to tail. And this is for 6th, 7th, and 8th. Completing the 2nd lap, starting lap 3.
Mark Carty's driving for 25 Motorsport. That is one of the teams owned by Steve Davis, who was last year's event winner. Mark has 292 starts at Race2Play and 2 championships.
trouble there. Quick replay here, see what happened. Looks like Eduardo got another really good draft down the long straight. Yeah. What happened there? Just a little protecting that inside line again. Not able to get on the throttle. That's a little loose.
Now that corner in turn 2, there's a tendency to get on the throttle pretty quick, and due to the configuration of the corner, that'll tend to lose your back end.
Prado did eventually pull that pass off on the outside. In fact, as I said, there's really no protecting a position from Eduardo. He's going to take it when he wants it. Does it cleanly. I got to respect him for that. Battle here.
Yeah, that was a nice pass. He was marking his time back there. Marco made a mistake, and Eduardo took it. Now, Mark Carty was on this track yesterday, in fact, the Bathurst GT race, which featured the Corvettes and Vipers and whatnot of the NAGT mod for R Factor. Mark finished 10th in that race last night. I hear the GT cars had an awesome battle on this track. Very few incidents, going side by side up and down the hill.
It was a fantastic race. Both races, European and US.
We see Michael Vert running ahead of Mark Carty there. Michael Vert's racing for CS Racing. Michael's nationality is the Czech Republic. He has 237 starts and 1 driver championship.
John and Mark's really tightened up. The three of them are still very close to each other. Trying to make a little contact with that wall. That's when you know that you're at the edge of the track, though. You really know that one. Just got to nudge the wall, see if you can scrape the door handle off.
I really like the rhythm through this downhill section. As long as you hit your marks and stay on line, the rhythm deposits you right down into these little pockets. You can see them dive down. There's a little drop there, a little dip. Hit that dip just right with a satisfying thud.
Speed coming down, back down the hill here.
John Wheels racing for Pinnacle Motorsports. His teammate in the race is Zach Olrenshaw. John has 113 starts and 11 wins here at Race2Play. John's not racing. He is a guitar teacher in Ireland.
Battle for 15th.
Now Ray Vachon there. Ray Vachon is one of Race2Play's earliest members. In fact, he took a few years off. He's been playing with real-life race cars, doing autocross and time trials.
Saved there by Ray.
Yeah, now it's winter. He's got his car in the garage, going to do some work on it over the winter. And he's back at Race2Play.
He said he's just going to keep his skills, just keep everything motivated and I just lost the word that I was looking for, but he wants to keep the competition in his blood over this off season.
Well, what I like about Ray's story is that he was a long-time sim racer. He bought himself a nice car, has been doing some real-life racing, and when he came back to Race to Play after 3 years, his online driving career was exactly where he left it.
Nothing changed. All the stats were there. Looks like Marco had another small issue there. He's falling behind Zach now. So Marco was racing Ennis, who was 9 seconds behind Tristan. Now Marco's 15 seconds behind Tristan, so he lost even more time.
Ahead of Marco is Zach Orenshaw. That's the other Pinnacle Racing driver. Zach has 249 starts and 35 wins in his career at Race to Play. Zach also drove in the Bathurst GT race last night and finished 4th. He drove the Mustang Cobra. So he went from Ford Mustang Cobra to... What car is Zach driving here today?
Oh boy, what is
Ford,
that?
Ford or the Holden?
I don't know which one that car is until we get a good view at it here. Yeah, it's
looks like a Holden, isn't it?
Lynn says that's the Ford.
That's the
WPS
Ford.
car.
Okay.
We're gonna go with the little Matrix camera. The good Zach's got a great battle with Marco.
All right. Mystery solved. So yesterday Zach was driving the Mustang Cobra by Ford, and today he's driving a Ford V8 car in the Bathurst 500K.
Whoops. Zach running a little wide there, almost giving it to Marco. He had a couple big battles on track. This is one of them, the cars closest to each other. Another one between Ennis and Eduardo for second and third. We're watching them on scoring. They're about a second away from each other, so not really within striking distance yet, but that could change at any corner, of course.
I'm seeing in some chat, people are pretty impressed with the track.
Ryan Johnson offside.
This is a gorgeously done track. Say whoever created this track should win the Sim Racing Nobel. I'm going to have to point out, somebody here said he deserved it more than Obama deserved his. Barack Obama did not win the Nobel Prize. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change won the Nobel Prize, and Al Gore was part of that, and Al Gore also won the Nobel Prize. Not Obama. I know people like to take a crack at Gore for winning for a slideshow, but it was actually the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change.
Things you didn't know and wish you knew.
I'll be giving further history lessons online after the race. Log into Race2Play.com.
The battle here between these three cars, this is again for 6th, 7th, and 8th, ongoing. They haven't changed position and still running nose to tail. Ennis and Eduardo still running close enough, but not necessarily in striking distance of each other. See Ennis and Eduardo, a second or so apart. That was for 2nd and 3rd, and Zach and Marco running 4th and 5th nose to tail. Some good battles here in the top half of the field. And I say the bottom half, but really they're not that far off. These leaders still only 30 seconds off the pace, or I should say off of Tristan, which is a win in my book. And they're all still within a couple seconds of each other. So one minor mistake will change some positions here for sure.
and Jacob and Ray running 15th, 16th, still nose to tail. And we saw Brian Johnson off in the sand while Todd was giving us the history lesson. Brian now 1 lap down, running in 18th.
Are you mocking me?
Not at all, not at all. Looks like Marco's calmed down a little bit here and finally accepted that he's going to have to run behind Zach for a while, at least till a pit stop. One thing that I've been seeing a lot more of in the Race2Play events, the competition level has increased to such an extent where if you're running in the top quarter, top half of a field, and you want to pass somebody, you pretty much just have to wait for them to make a mistake. You can't force the issue anymore. The level of the drivers, the skill of the drivers, it's just too high. You can't stick your nose in a braking zone and expect to pull a pass off anymore. These guys are too good. Miscue there and lost a position. Down the long straight into turn 2.
It's 2:30 a.m. Sunday morning for Andy Graydon. He's probably trying to remember where he put his cup of coffee.
Looks like he just got a little loose coming at it too. Gave the position.
He's adjusting his cup holder.
Caffeine there, some contact with the wall. Back to live pictures here. And then Boyd, who just took that position from Andy, having a little error coming down the hill. Whoops. Sometimes those walls will save you. Just a really bad spot there to make a U-turn. Back to the battle here for 4th and 5th. Marco did pull the pass off. And I want to see how this pass turned out. Looks like just coming down the hill into the braking zone. Really risky place to make a pass. But Marco pulled it off. Zach knows when he's beat, pulls in behind. Back into turn 2. So we have 9 laps completed. Tristan still leading by 11 seconds over Ennis. Eduardo Prado running 3rd in a comfortable spot right behind Ennis, not nose to tail, but easily within sight. This battle here between Marco in 4th and Zach Ullrenshaw in 5th. It's been ongoing. And then 6th, 7th, Mark Carty in 6th, John Wheel in 7th, and it looks like Michael Burton was running in this battle for 6th. He's fallen back to 9th, allowing Hugo Gomez to pull. So Michael must have had an issue there the last lap that he missed. Running order there for you, top 13. See if Zach makes the same attempt here. He does. Into the braking zone down the hill. Little too fast.
Keep going. That
was good. Good awareness by Marco, that's for sure. He did a good job there. For Marco's in car. Let's see, just out of view until the last second.
Whoop.
Good. Both of them trying to get back on the power in the car. cars are real sideways. So Zach attempted what Marco did in the last lap, just couldn't pull it off.
We don't like to see cars skittering across the track like that, but I can also tell you as a driver, you don't want to be stuck in the sand traps at Bathurst.
No.
Because the odds are that's the end of your race.
And we saw a couple drivers last night that put their MEGT car in the sand, and it took over a lap, so 2+ minutes to get it out of the sand trap. It was awful. This is for 7th between John Wheel and Hugo Gomez. Great driving, both of them there. Looks like maybe Zach's content to sit behind Marco for a couple laps now, regain his composure.
Regain his composure, but I will not be surprised if we see another attempt in the same spot.
No, Zach will climb back up there for sure. Going into the P11 here, Steve Taylor and Boyd Bryson was right on his tail. It looks like he's lost a bunch of ground. Yeah, lost 10 seconds. Zach not close enough to go for it again on this lap. Looks like everybody has finally sorted themselves out into the positions that they're going to ride around in here for a little bit. We're on lap 11, just started lap 11, and got that little bit of gap between every car, except for these two gentlemen here, Marco and Zach, running pretty close to each other on the track.
Now, Race2Play started broadcasting its special event schedule this year in 2009. We started back in January with the 2.4 hours of Daytona, and we shadow real-life special events in the world of motorsports. We've done the 2.4 hours of Daytona, Sebring. We did a Daytona 500K stock car race, and all these were broadcast live as part of our special event schedule. Now, coming up at the end of the year, we've got the 2nd annual World Championships of Online Racing, sanctioned by the National Autosport Association and presented by Race2Play.com. And those are special championship events. Drivers qualified racing all sorts of different sims, different mods, different cars, different tracks, and that describes the nature of the championships as well. It'll involve different sims, different cars, different tracks, and when you are crowned world champion, you actually are a rounded champion of multiple sims. World champions are designed to find the Mario Andrettis of sim racing, those guys who can jump into any kind of equipment, drive it for whatever it is, and excel at that. And at the coming up the end of the year here, we will have the finals of the 2nd annual World Championships of Online Racing here at Race2Play.
I think we're going to be seeing some of these names in those championships. I think we should have ourselves an announcement on the schedule here pretty soon.
Yeah, the finals will be announced. Every driver will get the announcements at the same time. Nobody will have an unfair advantage. And if you go to the Race2Play.com website and under Sim Racing, click on the World Championships link. You'll see a description of the World Championships, links to last year's World Championships, as well as lists of drivers who have qualified in sports car, touring car, open wheel, and stock car online sim racing.
Battle between Marco and Zach heated up again there for half a lap. Making their through Brian Johnson, who's 2 laps down. Brian had that error in the sand trap there, on a lap down early on.
Brian Johnson, he's 19 from the United States. He is running for the Running From Nothing race team today. He has 69 starts in his career at Race2Play.
That should be his first. Whoops. Found the bumpy way through there. This should be his first start in these cars and on this track, so he's got a pretty big learning curve.
I'd say that's a textbook description of leaving the racing surface.
You know, if Brian can finish this race, that would be one big achievement just to start with. So,
a 3-hour race is not to be taken lightly. After the first hour, you got pit stop strategies, getting tired. As hours 2 and 3 creep on, it's really a matter of keeping your focus. And if you lose your focus in some of these twisty sections coming up and down the hill, chances are you're going to ping pong all the way down through the walls.
See some damage on Zach's nose there. If I can find the right camera, we'll get a good look at it here. It's got a little right front corner damage.
How is it you couldn't do that when we were trying to figure out the car make?
Because I was frightened. Couldn't think straight. We're getting the camera stuff. It's been a month since our last broadcast, and we get a little rusty in between each one here. Again, Marco and Zach still running nose to tail. They've been at it for 13 laps now. They're midway through their 14th lap. Considering these are 2+ minute laps, they've been at it for a half an hour straight. Now working through some more traffic. Charlie Parker there. Not an easy place to pass even a lapped car. Charlie's 1 lap down in 17th.
Now Charlie is one of the two driver teams that we described earlier. There are 4 Race2Play members gathered at Charlie Parker's house in California right now. Charlie Parker is teaming up with Andrew Baranek to do driver swaps. And side by side on another PC, Tristan Bayless and Kent Welker are teaming up in Tristan's car. And they are all gathered at Charlie's house, having a great afternoon of it.
In fact, we don't know which driver is in Charlie's car right now, and though we don't know which driver's in Tristan's, we're betting that it's Tristan. He took pole and he's running very quick lap times, though Kent's no slouch behind the wheel, that's for sure. So we're assuming Tristan's running the first stint in his car, and we actually have no clue who's running in Charlie's car. It could be Andrew or Charlie at this point. Jacob's stuck in the sand there. He's working his way out.
Now, Jakub Vinacek is from the Czech Republic. He is Michael Vert's teammate on CS Racing. Jakub also ran in the GT race on this track last night, finished 9th.
Coming in for an early stop.
Yesterday, Jakub was driving the Corvette C6R on this track. And today it looked like he was in the Holden.
Oh, you know, I wasn't paying attention to this. Super cheap. Yeah, we're going to take a closer look here. That is the Holden, yeah. It's a good shot at the car.
Now, is this a scheduled pit stop? We're 40
minutes
minutes
in.
in.
It was pretty early here.
Cooked his tires.
He was off in the sand trap, so. Get going again, running 17th. He is a lap down now because of being stuck in the sand. There's a good battle here between John and Hugo Gomez for 7th and 8th. See how tight it is in the run down the hill here. This is the battle on track. The cars are closest to each other. Ennis and Eduardo running in 2nd and 3rd. Still pretty close to each other, but I believe Eduardo is just going to hang out. Doesn't seem like he's in any rush to climb up on Ennis's rear bumper and go for a pass.
Well, Eduardo is obviously one of the winningest drivers at Race2Play. It's certainly not to sell Ennis short. He was dominant in this race last year. Eduardo is one of a couple drivers from Brazil racing in this event today.
Well, you know, I say Eduardo was just hanging out, but his driving's not agreeing with what I said. He's pushing it. He went wide off the track and locking him up. He's going after Ennis, but
we've talked about the GT race that was on this track last night using the GT cars. Eduardo actually won that race last night. Looks like the stewards are doing their job and conversing amongst themselves about issues. Then back to Eduardo in the Euro version of the GT Cup race yesterday. Eduardo won, driving the Cadillac CTS-V. That car, by the way, made it around the track in about 2:14, 2:15.
Not too far off of the pace of these big.
Yep, these big V8s, they're running 210s or so, 211s.
Yeah, I know Tristan is running the 09s there, but he might
Still?
be the only one. Yeah, and Ennis and Eduardo looks like in the 10s and 11s. So Tristan still running the mid to high 09s, yeah. Tristan's still pulling away. He's actually got an 18-second lead over Ennis at this point. And Ennis has about a 1.5-second lead over Eduardo, and that's been consistent for the past 15 laps. I mean, on lap 17 here.
So we have Eduardo running 3rd. He's followed by Marco Felix in 4th, Zach Ullrenshaw in 5th, Mark Carty in 6th, John Wheel in 7th, Hugo Gomez in 8th, Michael Vert in 9th, and our lone Australian driver, Andy Graydon, he's in 10th.
Good battle there with Michael. Oh boy, you think about the distance between these two drivers, Australian and a Czech Republic, right? Those two drivers that probably never would have met on track. Andy with a big off.
We'll see being American, I'm not familiar enough with the globe to tell you how close they are.
It's just you don't see them together on the same track. You just don't envision them there. So.
Not the same hemisphere, but
no.
I think they are on the same side.
Well, compared to us, yeah, they're on the same side. They're just over there. They're on the wrong side.
I read an article about this race a few years back. The real Bathurst 1000 is basically a 3-day party on the mountain. And this article goes on to describe mountains of empties, spontaneous fires, stuff flying through the air. It's basically a 3-day festival and party. See Zach Ollerenshaw, he took a look there, but Marco holds on to the inside line and keeps the position.
Yeah, it looks like he maintained it all the way down that straightaway. We're back to the live picture. I went for a quick replay on those guys. Another battle between John and Hugo that really tightened up. Trying to keep a close eye. We got 3 battles on track. The Zach and Marco, John and Hugo, and this one here between Boyd Bryson and Steve Taylor.
John and Marco. Who were the other ones? Zach and Hugo?
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Zach and Marco and John and Hugo. There we go.
It sounds like a boy band from the Eastern Bloc.
This one so far has been really interesting to watch because of Marco's level of aggression. It's always frowned upon in sim racing, but I think it's great. You know, if a guy can control it, he can bring some great racing, especially to a broadcast. And he's done just that. Marco running in 4th, Zach in 5th, right behind. See if Zach can make another run down the long straight here. Turn 1.
Speculate maybe Zach has a little less wing.
That pulled right into the rear bumper. Zach knew what he was
going to
do. Yeah, Marco's going to protect that inside.
You need to be a little delicate on the throttle coming out of turn 2 here.
See how the shadows play with your vision. Multiple mark.
I think Marco's giving notice, even though it's 18 laps into an 80-lap race. Marco's giving notice that nobody gets anything for free from him. We're cresting the hill here and going to begin the downward plunge through some S's. Avoid the sand on the left, the wall on the right. We're going to hit a dip here, which I always found pretty satisfying. To hit that dip just right, it seems to plant your car.
Yeah, this final left is a lot like that. You can come off that crest and it's a ripple field. You see Marco really spinning up that inside rear tire. See if Zach makes some grab on it. These other battles are still ongoing on track, although they have some 1 second gap or so between the 2 cars. I think Zach's carrying a little less weight. Marco really pulled away climbing up the hill. See him. Oh, almost lost it there. Both of them almost lost it coming out of there. Tires have really got to be wearing down.
The tires are worn. These cars put a lot of horsepower to the rear tires. You need to be gentle coming out of some of these turns. What was that? That was the second or
very close there.
Penultimate turn there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one where you have to be pretty ginger, otherwise you're gonna float it around.
A little pucker factor keeps you awake in these longer races, so good for Zach.
I think he saw Marco wiggling and got all excited, and he added a little too much throttle, and
so that's opened up the gap between these two to about 2 seconds. It's given a little bit of breathing room to Marco. Take another peek at these other battles here. John Wheel and Hugo, you can see a pretty short gap, a little over a second. And then behind them, it was Boyd Bryson and Steve Taylor, though there's about a 3-second gap between those two cars now. Tristan still with the 22nd, very comfortable lead, leading the race, just hanging out. We'll see what happens when they do their driver change and hand the wheel off to Kent. Completing the 19th lap. Tristan's got some damage to the right side of his car as well. Bashed in the door a little bit.
Yeah, if you're tuning in and you're new to sim racing or new to Race2Play, Race2Play.com runs professionally organized online racing events using commercially available racing simulations. This one is using the R-Factor racing simulation with a V8 Supercar add-on to extend the racing. Race2Play organizes events in sports car, touring car, open wheel.
Charlie Parker is parked.
Yeah, parked on the uphill climb there. Looks like he got going without any further contact, though.
Let's see what happened to Charlie here.
So all types of racing. I see we're replaying the spin here.
Yeah, pretty honest mistake there. You get your inside wheels on the other side of that white line, and it loops you around.
Good looking out by Tristan there.
Yeah.
Have we seen pit stops yet?
No, other than I called him Jacob and you called him
Jakob,
a very different name. Yeah, other than Jakob.
Well, I hope I'm pronouncing that. I think I'm pronouncing that right.
Except we're seeing Prado now dropped way down the order. And yeah, he just came out of pit lane, so Prado completing his first stop. We'll see if some of these other guys do.
I was trying to speculate whether or not any of the multi-driver teams have swapped yet.
I could probably do it on these long straights, huh? Well, they still got to go in for tires and fuel no matter what.
So if this kind of thing looks great to you, Race2Play has racing in all sorts of racing disciplines, supports virtually every commercial available racing simulation on the market.
Tristan's still not in.
I believe Race2Play has almost 80 active series currently. And we have a healthy selection of independent chapters. Independent chapters are leagues or individuals who want to run a special series of their own choosing and do it within the Race2Play system. Use the stats, the scorekeeping, and all the other features of the website, and put together driver pools for the independent chapters. And Race2Play currently has upwards of 80 active series this season alone in racing for virtually every racing type. So if this kind of thing looks great to you, go to Race2Play.com, check out the schedule, sign up, and join a race.
Prado's still the only league car that's pit. Tristan about a half a lap away from pit entry. We'll see if he stops.
Now, if you're watching the broadcast live, there is a built-in chat feature where you can chat along with the other viewers watching the broadcast live. I can see here in the chat as we were watching some of the cars bounce off the walls and so forth. Lynn Kinchlow, another active Race to Play driver, comments that it reminds him he needs to buy more duct tape.
Tristan's still opting not to pit, so getting 2 extra laps than Prado has. If that was an early stop for Eduardo as well. Ennis really digging down in there. Almost went off track. Be interesting here is to see if Eduardo's just trying to pull something on Ennis. Ennis running about 2 seconds off of his fastest pace of the mid-09s. So he's running 2:11.9, 2:12.2, 2:11.0 this last lap. And Prado, he just came out of pits last lap. But if he starts running a little bit quicker, he can leapfrog over Ennis in this pit cycle. A little Formula One maneuver.
I think last year we calculated pit stops were going to run us 22, 23 seconds. I think.
Yeah, the guy that's done his Prado here, we'll have to see what he... That's plus 36 seconds for that one. There we go. Yeah, about 36 seconds, and he's running that second lap faster than Ennis, so do that for a couple laps and he'll hopscotch Ennis. Hugo just pulled the pass off on Wheel. Looks like Wheel just overcooked it.
That's a corner where you have to be ginger on the throttle.
Yeah.
Goes down to the final turn here.
So
onto
John,
the start-finish straight.
It's a good save. Let's see if he can let Hugo get away from him, so no draft going down the long straight. Everybody's getting very squirrely. I'm seeing all these cars move around, doing a lot of dancing around. Tristan still not pitting. Ennis running in second. Still not pitting.
Now Ennis was the record holder for these cars and these tracks right up to this event. Tristan on the pole took the new track record, although Ennis bested his time by about 3/10 over last year. Would have held the record if not for Tristan's 2:08.816 lap.
That Tristan character. Nobody likes him. Tristan's a great guy. He just happens to steal a lot of thunder. Take a peek at what we did last year, how many laps we were able to complete between stops.
Now Tristan is one of the other two-driver, multi-driver teams. He is gathered with Kent Welker for driver swaps in this event. Tristan and Kent, they are on the Governators race team, which was formed just for this special event. Tristan, Kent, Charlie Parker, and Andrew Baranek are all gathered at Charlie's house right now, driving two cars on two separate PCs. Now Tristan's teamed up with Kent Welker. Normally, the two are also teammates on GTNDC, which is the most successful racing team here at Race to Play.
John just drove it right into the wall. We looked up last year's race, and Steve Davis, who won the race, was doing 30 laps between pit stops, 30 to 31 laps. So it was a very early stop for Prado. Uh-oh. Got ourselves a nose cone back there. We're going to have to figure out who that was from. Or am I fumbling about here? Do a little rewinding. Looks like we got our first driver out of the race as well. Richard Hamilton. Just spun it coming around the corner there. Yeah, Richard Hamilton listed as out of the race for suspension damage. And some visitors walking in the booth here.
Now, as I was talking about the multi-driver teams out in California, they call themselves the Governators. It occurs to me that maybe not everybody knows, and maybe certainly not our European and elsewhere drivers, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the governor of California here in the United States. And these guys have named their team the Governator.
Schwarzenegger, Terminator.
Exactly. I had the Governator.
That wasn't going to go there.
I'll be back. I'll be back to drive this race car. I drive this race car fast for the Governators.
So yeah, I'm struggling to keep a straight face here. Prado with his early stop. He's worked his way back up into this battle between Zach and Marco. This is the third and fourth, Prado in fifth.
I need to issue a disclaimer here. I talked about how the real life event is a 3-day party and mountains of empties piling up. So in the spirit of things, I started drinking at breakfast this morning.
For the time zone challenged people, we start this broadcast pretty early in our morning anyway, about 9 a.m. So I know it's probably late compared to a lot of other guys, but normally our days start about this time, so we have a couple hours before we really need to start communicating. And
so it was 9 a.m. for us here in the United States. It's late afternoon for our European drivers, and for Andy Graydon in Australia, it's just after 3 a.m. Sunday morning.
Jeez. Ahead of us. Pass attempt by Prado on Oler and Shaw. Of course, Eduardo's going to have the fresh tires coming into turn 2 there. And the inside line. Yeah, there we go. Exactly. Real close to that wall. So Prado up to fourth after an early stop. See how he deals with Marco here in another lap or two. He's about 3 seconds behind Marco Felix. We've watched Marco for the first 20 laps of this race, real aggressive driving, but has been able to keep it in control. And he's done a fantastic job running third. He spent a lot of time just to get past Zach Ulrich. Brian doing a good job staying out of the way of the leaders. Brian's running 18th. He was 4 laps down, so he's had some more issues that we didn't catch on camera. Still only one car out of this race, and that was
Hamilton, who we saw kiss the wall there, lose his front suspension and retired at that point. Zach got past and has been hanging out with Prado, even with the fresh tires. Let's watch a lap from Eduardo's in-car. And right when I say that, Marco pits. So that took the whole thunder out of that one. We'll still watch the lap from Marco. Or sorry, Eduardo.
Turn 1 on the track. Down straight towards turn 2. As we approach turn 2 and turn in here, we have some run out, but you can see it's off camber and you need to be gentle on the throttle there, otherwise lose the back end. So you're not full out, you're feathering it through that turn. Now we're going up the mountain. We're at the crest of the mountain here. After this left, we'll be approaching the downhill S's. There's sand on the left, walls on the right. This is where we saw Richard Hamilton lose it a little while ago. There's a little drop right here. Sit in the pocket real nicely to make that turn. Here's the final turn leading to the downhill straight. This is the turn where we saw Zach Ollenshaw try some moves on Marco Felix earlier. You get through this, but you need to be on the binders right now, and you don't want to go into the dirt traps because the dirt traps are very sticky, very quicksandy at this track. Ginger on the throttle there. Here's the final turn leading to the start-finish straight. And that's an onboard lap with Eduardo Prado. So hitting turn 1 here and back for another round. Zach Ollenshaw hot on his heels. Now we see Tristan Bayliss, one of the Governators. He is more than a minute out ahead of Eduardo. He has not pit yet. We should be seeing that coming up. Snipping on the heels of Andy Graydon. And it looks like Tristan's going around again. So the team car of Tristan Bayliss and Kent Welker still has not pit yet. And Tristan enjoys a minute 6 lead over Eduardo Prado in second. Zach Ollenshaw is in the chase for third. Ennis Dowdy in fourth. Mark Carty in fifth. John Wheel in sixth. Marco Felix in seventh. Michael Vert in eighth. We saw Andy Graydon there being lapped. He's in ninth. Andy Graydon is the first car a lap down. Hugo Gomez running in 10th. So we're still waiting for the team car of Tristan Bayliss and Kent Welker to make their pit stop. But they have a very healthy lead over Eduardo Prado in second. And assuming the motor doesn't drop out at the bottom of the chassis, they'll hold on to the lead coming out of the pits.
You can see Mike Burke riding ahead of Tristan here. Mike's running an 8th. So Tristan about ready to put the 8th place car down one lap. There we go.
All right, now this track is a little over 3 3/4 miles long, 3.8 and change miles long. It's taking these cars, the fast cars are getting around it in 2:09, 2:10. Those are the times for Tristan and Eduardo. And the race is 80 laps long today. We expect that to take in the ballpark of 3 hours.
He's just not going to stop, is he? Jim Egan's comment in chat. Tristan's never going to stop, I agree.
Is that the only car who hasn't stopped yet?
It looks like it.
From the times of it, I would have to say so. Looking at the time chart, I'd have to guess that.
Mark and John may not have pit yet. Yeah, otherwise they'd be behind Marco Felix. I can verify it. No, they haven't pit yet.
There you go.
There's a couple cars that haven't pit, but oddly enough, very different pit strategies among some of these lead cars. Prado pit 8 laps ago.
So 29 laps into the race, we have Zach Olrenshaw in third, with Ennis just a second behind him. There's Zach running into the pits.
And not let Ennis sneak past.
Yep. There's Ennis then, start finish straight.
Let's see if Mark's going to duck into the pits here. I think Prado is just driving this. Mark's not going in.
Whoops.
John's going into the sand. You got lucky there. I think Prado's just driving this race backwards. If you're doing 30 lap stints on fuel and tires, that's 60 laps for 2 stints and then a 20 lap stint at the end. So he's just doing it in reverse, 20 lap to start and 2 30 lappers. So Zach just leaving pits now, falling in line behind Marco. Tristan going past start finish line again, so he's doing one more lap. This is his 31st lap. It's about as long as I think he can go.
I think race control should sample his fuel.
Yeah, I think we ought to just bring him in right now and strip his car down.
Mandatory tech inspection for Tristan and Kent.
Yep. Get a hold of Johan and do a little strip inspection on Tristan. Man, I just can't find the words.
What's Johan have to do that? I'm waiting for the punchline.
Yeah, I forget it. It's gone. It's past. Johan was always our guy way back in the day that took care of all the punishments of the drivers in his own special way.
Yes, if you were privileged enough to read Johan's writings in his blogs when he was writing them, not an individual you would like to cross. Great guy you would like to have a friend, not a guy you'd like to have as an enemy.
Yep.
Johan's probably at home working on his own Corvette. Bought a Corvette last year.
I haven't seen too much of him since.
Yeah, bought it in the U.S., had it shipped to his home in Europe. That's true. Haven't seen him since.
Yeah, I think he built this huge garage for that that car.
That garage was the envy of garages.
Yeah. Well, good for him, though. Tristan's still refusing to pit. I'm just going to have to give that guy a stop and go just to force him into pit lane at some point. Whoa, Prado way off track. Working his way around Michael Burt. So if Prado is a minute and 6 seconds behind Tristan and the pit stop is costing 36 seconds, yeah, Tristan's got a very healthy lead. Still a 30-second lead even after the pit stops. There's a battle on track. Felix and Wheel for 5th and 6th. Strip search. That was the word I was trying to find. Story of my life. Always 5 minutes too late.
Yeah, I could backtrack 10 minutes and explain to you all what that means, but we're just going to move on.
Yeah.
20 minutes later, we'll something like, red bubblegum, that's what I was thinking of. Now, if you're watching these and wishing you were racing, among the 80 or so series Race to Play is putting on currently is a V8 Supercars race. And in fact, these V8 Supercars will be racing at Melbourne. October 25th will be the next event for that series. So go to Race2Play.com and check it out. V8 Supercars, they run under the touring car racing discipline at Race to Play. Race to Play features organized online events in sports car, touring car, open wheel, stock car, and off-road racing. Pretty much all racing your heart's desire. So if you want to check out the V8 Supercars, they'll be at Melbourne October 25th.
John just didn't turn in. I wonder if that was intentional or not. John just giving the position away. Looks like he just gave it to Zach. Just didn't turn in. Let Zach take the apex. He's falling a couple car lengths back just on that straightaway. These three cars, Felix, Zach Uller, and Sean John Wheel, all fairly close to each other on track here. Looks like Zach's making ground up on Uller and Sean. Sorry, on Felix.
Now, if you're watching the broadcast live, there's a chat feature where you can chat with all the others who are watching the broadcast live. Somebody commented that Connor McCarroll was not in the race. Connor is a very familiar face to these special events and at Race to Play in general. Connor is the second most winningest driver at Race to Play currently. And Connor probably would be in the race right now, except he is in boot camp for the National Guard.
We're going to thank him for doing what he's doing. And yeah, he just went to boot camp last week, so we're going to be missing him for a couple months, in fact. We should see him again early next year. I cannot believe Tristan, he's on his 33rd lap, still without a pit. We had a discussion going on in chat here. It's interesting. Lynn and Jim Egan talking about their first racing sims. Jim Egan talking about the Papyrus Indy 500 sim. That was back in, wow, 90,
early
89, something like that. Maybe you can correct me there, Jim.
I was going to say early 90s.
Yeah, very, very early 90s. And I'd say I dabbled in that one back in the day, but my first proper sim would be the World Circuit Grand Prix by Microprose. I think that was in 91.
My first one was IndyCar Racing 2, but I was not really into it at that point. It was bundled with a joystick that I bought.
What'd you buy the joystick for?
I'm sure it was for flight simulations. Yeah.
Boyd having a little issue here, just getting on the throttle too hard there. Yeah, I was into flight sims earlier than I was into auto racing sims. In fact, I really didn't get into auto racing sims hardcore until about 1993 after watching the Formula One race at Brazil, real Formula One race at Brazil, and I think that's about when I started getting into sim racing just about on a daily basis. I wanted to be that Ayrton Senna. So Tristan, he just
bypassed it again.
I don't know how he's getting this kind of fuel mileage. Oh, he's not. He just pit. He's only got a 10-second lead over Eduardo. So Tristan must have just come out of pit lane. He almost snuck it past us. All right, he did sneak it past us a lap or two ago. Yeah. So he had pit last lap while we were busy watching somebody else and talking about something else.
Okay. Tristan did pit, what was it, a lap ago?
It was a lap ago, back on 32, yeah.
All right, his lead over Eduardo is now down to 8 seconds, almost 9 seconds.
Might have made up a pretty good chunk of time there, then. I'm watching this whole thing in a slight delay. Sorry, guys. Felix and Oler and Shaw, this is the battle for 4th and 5th. Tristan having some issues now. The gap down to 5 seconds to Prado running in second, and Ennis 3 seconds behind Prado, 2.5 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the chat discussion so we can miss a few more key moments in the race here.
I'll keep an eye on the cameras here.
Jim Egan reports that Indy 500 was 1990.
1990. Have to look up when World Circuit by Microprose came out. That was pretty much when I started my sim racing. In fact, I remember going in halves with a friend of mine to buy that game. I don't think he ever saw it. We went in halves and then I took it from him from then on. Back then, the copy protection was you had to know what word, which paragraph, which line in the manual to access the game. Felix being very aggressive with his defensive driving here. (1992), Jim says. Thank you, Jim. And I remember that one of the words, there was only a limited number of questions in this copy protection of which word on this line in this paragraph on this page. One of the words was the, T-H-E, the. So I knew if I just kept bypassing it until it got to that question and kept typing in the word the, then I'd eventually get into the game. You lose your manuals at some point, but I played that game for years. Let's see if Zach can pull it off here.
I still have boxes of old PC games from the 90s. And it amazes me to dig through there and see these manuals that are an inch thick. Just would not happen nowadays.
Yeah. Lucky to be 10 pages.
So now that the team of Tristan and Kent has stopped, I think we can assume that Kent Welker is in the car right now.
Kent's in the car and losing time to Prado and Ennis, and I think that's the difference. Kent, no slouch at all, but his experience is more in the Simbin titles, and that's where he really shines. He does a very good job in R Factor, but Prado is exceptional.
Yeah, Kent and Tristan are teammates on GTNDC, which is the most successful team at Race2Play. with a lot of high caliber drivers, very, very winning. But Ken spends most of his time in GTR2 in the singling titles.
Boy, great job pulling over here for the leaders. These are all three of the leaders, nose to tail here. Looking from, let's just call it Kent's rear view. 2 seconds, 1.8 seconds of blanking the top three cars. And this is after an hour and 25 minutes of racing, 5 laps in.
Let me describe what I mean by the driver change and Kent Welker being in the car for some of you who missed it. But we have a team of 4 guys who have gathered at Charlie Parker's house in California, and they have 2 PCs. So they've divided themselves up to two driver teams racing in this event. Tristan Bayless and Ken Welker are swapping in one car. Charlie Parker and Andrew Baranek are swapping in the other car. And they're all gathered at the same house right now with 2 separate PCs to run this race.
I'm trying to think of the experience level of all 3 of these guys. All of them are extremely experienced in racers. Interesting to see if there's any drama here. I don't believe there will be. Keep the nose clean, that's for sure.
You know, Kent is he's fast enough to run out front, and he's smart enough not to hose his race if push comes to shove.
Just making a move on Prado. Huge draft coming down that back straight. Can't get a little out of shape there, yeah. He's going to tuck in behind now. Go back and watch that while we have the opportunity. This is all 3 of them coming into that final sequence of corners here. Kent just getting the rear out of shape as he's on the brakes hard. Ennis taking over the lead. Prado right on his tail. Kent's going to tuck in 3.5 seconds behind Ennis now. See if Prado makes a move going into turn 2. And I'm saying Kent Welker, though the name above the car it says Tristan Bayless. It is actually Kent Welker in the car.
Now, Ennis was the record holder for this track right up to qualifying today. When Tristan took the record and qualified on the pole. In last year's event, Ennis was dominant right up until his mechanical failure in the form of an internet disconnection. Now, it looks like they're coming up on Ray Vachon. Now Ray is running 14th. He's 1 lap down. As they come out of the downhill S's here and onto the main straight, Ennis and Eduardo should be able to get around. There they go. We saw Eduardo get a little squirrely there as he chases Ennis down the hill. They just lapped Ray Vachon. Ray Vachon is one of Race2Play's earliest members. He took a few years off to play with real race cars. Bought a hot car and has been working on it. It's back in the garage this winter while he does some more work on it, and he rejoined Race2Play and picked up his online driving career right where he left it 3 years ago. Now on the downhill chase, we saw Eduardo get a little squirrely trying to put the power down, and now he's running about 1 second behind Ennis. Eduardo's from Brazil, which has a very fine legacy of fast race car drivers.
Kent's falling back. 8 seconds behind Ennis now. You know those guys, Kent and Tristan, in fact the whole Governators, those two teams, there's what, 4, 5, or 6 of these guys that have all gotten together for this weekend. I know last night they went to a karting, go-kart place. Went there with them a couple of years back, 2 years back. A lot of fun, but I know, if I know Kent, he's a very competitive guy. And, I'm wondering maybe if he took a hit in these go-karts. It doesn't take much to hit one of the barriers. Even a hit in a go-kart is a big hit, I'll tell you that. I'm yapping now. Kent's a great racer. He's going to pick it right up. He's falling back a little further.
Now there's a member group on Race2Play called Member Meetups, where guys can plan get-togethers with fellow Race2Play members, and that's a great read to go through that thread. A few months ago, there were half a dozen to 8 guys in South America who met at one of the touring car races down there.
Close call.
And as Tim was just speaking about, these guys in Northern California organized an outing to a kart track last night, and I'm sure they'll be posting about that in the member meetups thread, talking about their outing at the kart track. That's something that happened a year or two ago as well.
Yeah.
There was, 8, 10 guys got together?
17.
17?
Yeah.
Okay, 8, 10, 17. I was getting there.
17? I didn't even know there were 17.
You cut me off before I got that high.
I didn't even know there were 17 Californian sim racers, and we all got together and went sim racing, and those guys got to see how bad my temper can get. Oh, Prado, hold on to it.
Oh.
Yeah, flatten that side of the car.
He's really hitting it though.
Yeah.
We've been sitting on him for a lap or two, and he's
really been out of shape a couple times. Yeah.
Ennis's lead is now out to almost 3 seconds.
16 seconds over Kent and Tristan, that team. So Ennis probably looking for a little redemption from last year, where he really feels that he should have won that race, the 1,000-kilometer race.
Yeah, he is on his way to doing so before his disconnect. And it looks like the other Californians, Charlie Parker and Andrew Baranek, are 3 laps down, currently running 16th. We still only have 1 car out of the race, and that was Richard
See how quickly things can change, even when you're...
See how quickly you can get back. Look at him avoiding those sand traps.
Oh, he held on. No, he's in 2nd place now, so we'll see what happens there. Looks like just Brian Johnson lost it, and Ennis in the wrong place at the wrong time. And allowed Prado to go through.
So Ennis is trailing by 4.5, almost 5 seconds now. But he had stretched out his lead from a half second to 3 seconds. So if Ennis stays consistent and Eduardo pushes it to the squirreliness that we had seen, Ennis may close that right back up.
Yeah, it may only take a few laps, in fact. 4.8 second gap. Very lucky for Ennis. I mean, unlucky that there was even that minor contact into the sand trap, but very lucky he didn't get stuck, and it's a pretty minor loss, 5 seconds or so.
Yeah, we're still 1 lap away from the halfway point.
Yeah.
So there is nothing catastrophic about that. Took evasive action, kept his car in one piece. Now he's back in the hunt. So that was great maneuvers by Ennis. Heads up.
We talked about Brian Johnson earlier in the event. This is, it's a big learning curve for him. He's learning these big cars and this big track. And his goal is going to be just to finish this race, and he's doing it. 6 laps down, unfortunately, but he's doing it. He's still running, and I hope he makes it this next hour and a half. He's made it to the halfway mark here. I'd like to see him finish this race. Yeah, that lead's already chopped a half a second off of it. Ennis 4.3 now. This is the battle on track between these two cars, Ennis and Eduardo. Everybody else has got, substantial gaps between cars, 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there. But while we're waiting for this gap to close back up, if there's any driver, if your team drivers or anything you want to take a peek at, let me know and we'll put the camera on them.
Now we see Michael Vert running just ahead of Andy Graydon.
For position.
This is for position. Second to last turn here. Need to be ginger on the throttle. We've seen a lot of guys get squirrely as you go over the hump there. It unsettles the car. It lifts the weight of the car there.
We were talking about these guys about a half an hour ago, geographically where they are in the world, Czech Republic and Australia.
So it's probably right about dinner time in the Czech Republic for Michael Vert.
Coming up to breakfast time.
It's 3:30 in the morning Sunday for Andy. I believe he's been watching some of the real live event coverage on his local channels down there in Australia, getting psyched for this race.
Steve Taylor's not far behind this battle, and that would be for position as well. Yeah. It's a 3-car battle here for 10th.
So Andy's been blogging about his preparations for this race, this event on his blog at Race2Play.com, talking about his preparations. He figures the race is going to finish about 5:30 a.m.-ish his time. Then it sounds like he's going to get a nap, take the wife to work at 7 a.m., and then start watching the TV coverage of the real live event in Australia.
Sounds like a perfect time.
So V8 Supercar weekend for Andy. I can't do Australian because it'll quickly degenerate into Jamaican.
Jim Egan talking about it's just too early. Andy, Andy actually does a lot of racing here at Race2Play, considering that most of the races to him are middle of the night. And the amount of racing he's done, it is pretty amazing. And in fact, because of Andy, we created and it's an extreme early morning event for us U.S. guys. But to Andy, it is and I'm talking about Saturday morning, so to Andy, that is Saturday evening. We created the series pretty much just for him and the other Australians that race at Race2Play. And it turns out it's a very popular series. We get a good mix of Australian and European drivers in it because it's Saturday. That'd be Saturday afternoon for the European guys, Saturday evening for Australians. And
was it 2 in the morning our time?
it's about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning our time. And it worked out really well. We're looking to expand that as more Australians come on board and do these races and fill them up. So we went went out of our way just to give Andy a reasonably timed event for him, at least 1 week. That's Saturday evenings for him, and he's got 30 plus other guys that race with him every week. So.
Well, that is the awesome thing about racing at Race2Play, with the thousands upon thousands of drivers making their home at Race2Play. We can set up an event, and in our Australian drivers and people like Andy will find a full field looking for that time slot as well. I know once upon a time my favorite NASCAR league 8-9 years ago started at 12:30 in the morning my time.
Sorry for this long rewind here, guys. Prado lost a huge chunk of ground, and I'm trying to figure out if he is just pit. He's pitting every 20 some odd laps. I thought maybe he was going to run a 20-lap stint and then 2 30s, but he's going to do one extra pit stop than Ennis and Tristan, unfortunately.
Well, as you were rewinding it and we were watching Eduardo Prado go backwards, I was going to comment that he's taken race lessons from Mater the tow truck.
So that puts the team of Tristan and Kent back in second. Kent behind wheel right now. 21 seconds behind Ennis Dowdy in first. Well, I don't want to speak badly of Kent at all, but it looks like he's struggling to the point of some of the lapped cars coming up and passing him, or wanting to get past him. Kent's not an easy guy to pass. Scoring up here, you guys can see where your favorite driver is in the race. Again, we've only lost one car out of the event, and that's Richard Hamilton. Who crashed out back on lap 22. Mark Carty really wants to get past Kent. Kent's running a little slower than Mark wants to run. Mark's running a lap down back in 8th. Gonna cycle up through the field here. Brian Johnson running in 17th, still running. Got to give them props for that. The other team car with Charlie Parker and Andrew running in 16th. They are 4 laps down. I called them Jacob earlier, and that's what I'm going to call him again. Running 15th, 3 laps down. You can see Steve Taylor. Uh-oh. I think we may have just lost this car out of the race. And pops back in right in front of Steve. Internet issue there for him, but still racing. Ray running in 14th, 2 laps down. Ken Jagger looks like a good 20 seconds ahead there, running 13th. And quick spin's going to close that gap up. It's right at turn 1. No major harm there, except for Boyd Bryson. Boyd's a full lap ahead of him, actually. Running in 12th with Steve Taylor, 11th just ahead. Just ahead, that's about 20 seconds lead. And Steve being 1 lap down. Andy Graydon is just ahead. And Michael Vert just ahead of that. You can see some body panels there. I'll find this car that's missing a nose cone. Is Mark Carty. Mark was trying to get past Kent earlier, and I'm wondering if that in a little heartache there, yeah. Yeah, just a little too hard on the throttle, into the wall. Rearranged the nose of his car, but still running. Good job, Prado, keeping his eyes open. So Mark's going to be in for a pit stop here. He can make it to the pit lane without. There we go. So Mark Carty, he's decided not to pit. I was going to say he's running in 8th. He's going to pit. Michael Vert not far behind him at all. And Andy Graydon not far behind Michael. So this is really the main battle on track at this point. This is for 8th, 9th, and 10th. I'm going to watch for Mark. I believe Mark's going to back up right into Michael Vert's hands. The top 3, Craig Wise was asking about the gap between the top 3. Ennis Dowdy leading Tristan Bayless and Kent Welker in the same car, 29 seconds behind. Eduardo Prado, 35 seconds behind Ennis. So that's about a 6-second gap between Tristan and Eduardo. I should say Kent and Eduardo, sorry.
Now, Mark Carty participated in the GT races yesterday, driving the Corvette C6R on this track. The last race for Michael Vert and Andy Graydon actually was the FIS Cup race, which is a Formula Open Wheeler race. So they've gone from Formula Open Wheelers to V8 Supercars. All in one span in their driving career at Race2Play.
Actually, within a 24-hour period. In fact, they ran those FIS cars yesterday. All right. The FIS cars ran yesterday, and whether they ran them or not, we'll find out.
Well, I will tell you that information. As a matter of fact, that was yesterday.
All right. I think Mark realized as he was climbing up that mountain that his car's not handling all that great. Let's see if he pops in for a quick stop here. Oh, he hasn't slowed up, that's for sure.
I remember one of my early blogs at Race2Play was marveling at the fact that in one 2-day span, I drove open wheelers, stock cars, touring cars, and sports cars.
Oh, yeah, that's the reason why sometimes it's just better to pit. No, he lost that position to Michael Vert anyway. And it's going to lose one to Andy Graydon. Yeah. And he's lucky to have only lost that small amount of time. Got there. Brian Johnson.
I believe Brian is 7 or 8 laps down.
Yeah, and he's been stuck there for some time, so I'm wondering if he's really going to finish his race right here in the sand track. He's got some heavy nose damage. Looks like his engine's about ready to let go on him. In fact,
looks like he's trying to get out of the sand. You mentioned before that the sand traps at this track, Bathurst, are rather trappy.
That's one thing that us sim racers don't have to worry about too much. You know, real race car drivers, once they put it in this, Mark's is just paying the price here without that nose cone. Real race car drivers get stuck in the sand every time they go out there. And us sim racers, for the most part, can drive through or out of them. It's only very select tracks. Yeah. That pit stop, last lap difference. That's not such a bad idea anymore. Sorry, I'm busy choking on a drink of coffee that I had 5 minutes ago. I'm still choking on it.
Well, when I saw him going through those S's drift style, for a minute I thought Pedro Martinez was in the race.
Pablo Martinez.
Pablo.
We also got this battle for second between Kent/Tristan and Eduardo heating back up. That's about as hot as you can get right there. So Eduardo's going to go for the outside pass into turn 1 here. So Brian Johnson still stuck in the sand trap there at turn 1.
See Kent fending off Eduardo as they go up the mountain, approaching the crest.
Whoop, right into the wall, yeah. Cut that apex and brings your track out.
And then they come through the downhill S's. We see Kent Welker holding off Eduardo Prado for third place there. Now we say Kent Welker even though the name over the car says T. Bayless for Tristan Bayless. Kent Welker and Tristan Bayless are actually in the same room doing live driver swaps together. Tristan started the race, and after the pit stop, we assume this is Kent Welker in the car. Side by side through the final turn there as Eduardo's trying to take the position. Kent still holding the inside line, backs out of it rather than cause a problem. Kent is a very smart driver. He's got a lot of experience.
Another battle that's really heated up here is Marco Felix and Zach Ollershoff. Remember the first half an hour of this race, these two guys were at it pretty, I mean, it was just a boxing match. See if Zach can pull up and go after Marco.
Marco is 17 from Portugal. He has just 11 starts here at Race2Play.
Conversely, Zach's probably one of our highest rated starters.
Zach's 20 from the United Kingdom, has 249 starts. 35 wins, 9 championships. And we've seen Zach in a lot of these special events that we've broadcast.
Yeah, in fact, he's had the camera pointed at him a lot. Did really well, and in all of them, in fact.
Yeah, we've seen Zach in a lot of these special broadcasts. We started broadcasting our special events schedule this year at Race2Play.com. We've done events like our own 2.4 hours of Daytona, our Daytona 500K stock car race, our Sebring race, 2.4 hours of Le Mans. You can get the idea that we're shadowing these real live special events in the world of motorsport, and that's what we've been broadcasting.
I see Brian Johnson got out of the sand trap there in turn 1 and moving again. Slow right now, but I think he's just trying to work his way around the pit lane. Teach that kid a little bit of patience. See it hurt him. I think Zach knows Marco's going to be super aggressive on the defensive line here. But somehow he's just able to make it work for him. You gotta give Marco that.
He gets through that kink, that dogland at the end of the straight really fast, yeah.
look at him getting real out of shape in that final corner.
I can see the dialogue in Zach's head. He sees Marco get squirrely. He says, "Oh, go for it." Oops. Gets squirrely himself. A lot of power to the rear wheels. If you're looking for upcoming broadcasts, we see Zach now trying the outside.
This is the only way somebody got past Marco in the past. Early in the race.
That was Zach, wasn't it?
It was Prado.
Prado.
Got a car in the wall there.
Trying that outside line through turn 2.
Mark Carty and Michael Vert. Trying to get facing the right direction again. Let's take a look at what caused that there.
Yeah, that was one of the battles we had going on.
Looks like Mike Vert making it around turn 2 and just found Mark Carty, who was sitting there. So
yeah.
I guess then the question is, why was Mark Carty there? Looks like he spun it on his own. Yeah, and the exit of it.
Yeah, you can see the turn is off camber there.
Oh.
The camber falls away from the turn. So too much throttle, and you're going to see what happens.
Just a really bad spot to have your car facing the wrong direction. Nothing Mark could do. He has to attempt a U-turn in a really bad spot.
Walls don't give any choice here.
And get back to battle there.
Looks like Zach got around Marco.
Yeah, Zach did, and it doesn't look like Marco's pleased about something. Zach pulled the pass off here. Up the hill. Oh, he did pull completely on the outside.
It was that mess in turn 2.
Yeah, I'm betting Marco got into Mark Carty a little bit, slowed him up, and allowed Zach to zip right on past. We'll see him trying to work his way around Steve Taylor, I think is who that was, as a lapped car.
Now, hopefully Marco put his head back in the game and not be a little too rash here, because we've seen him pretty aggressive in defending his positions. But you have to remember, every car on the track is dealing with lap traffic. There's nothing special or unique to Marco in that turn. Every car on this track is negotiating different cars, different turns. So there are no unfair considerations here.
Yeah, looks like maybe the pass went pretty easy. So it's just Marco letting Steve know that he was there and running for a position. We'll get back to some live pictures here.
Yeah, we've seen Marco be pretty aggressive, so you can imagine he wants Zach to know that he's back there and not giving up. If you're looking for future broadcasts, our second annual World Championships of Online Racing, sanctioned by the National Autosport Association and presented by Race2Play, is happening at the end of the year here. During the first 3 seasons of the year, finishers in all the series at Race2Play, high finishers, qualified. And if you go to the website under Sim Racing, click on World Championships, you can see a description of the World Championships, the lists of the names of guys who have qualified. There are World Championships in sports car, touring car, open wheel, and stock car racing. And the championships encompass multiple sims, multiple cars, multiple tracks, with the idea being to find those Mario Andretti's of sim racing who can step into any sort of equipment and drive it for what it is instead of what they wish it was. And the second annual World Championships, that's coming up at the end of the year.
Might have heard me do a really big exhale as Marco was working his way around Andy on that back straightaway. Marco's got my hairs in the back of my neck standing up. He's driving a great race, he really is. And when you're saying he's being aggressive, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Aggression is not against any rules, and he's welcome to be as aggressive as he wants, up to the point that he's making contact with other cars, which he hasn't been doing. So, though he's been very aggressive, he's kept it within his limits, and because of it, he's been running fourth. He is running fourth.
Well, we saw Marco make an aggressive move right off the launch. Snuck up the inside and grabbed a couple of positions there before turn one. But despite his aggression so far, he's done a pretty clean race.
Really has.
You know, so if you can make those moves and you can stick your line, more power to you.
I'm not sure you'll make too many friends on track with it, but you know, I guess what's your goal here? You know, win this race, make friends next race, right?
They're all friends at Race to Play. And besides, I haven't seen Marco do anything that, if I were following Marco, I'd be frustrated, but I haven't seen him do anything that would, you know, set me off.
No, he hasn't been doing anything against any rules or bad, quote unquote, you know, but
he's just not rolling over and giving it.
Yeah. He's keeping it within his own limitations. And
yeah, as long as you can keep your car together and stay off of the others and hold your line. That's great racing. We see Marco diving into the pits here. We're on lap 51 of the 80-lap race. And Marco dives into the pits from fourth position.
So that allows Zach a little bit of, well, allows him to breathe. I bet you the poor guy's been holding his breath for past half an hour.
So we saw Marco dive into the pits from fourth position. We have Ennis Dowdy leading the race. He's got about a 38-second lead over Eduardo Prado right now. Zach Ulrenshaw's in third. Kent Welker is in fourth. Marco fifth. Hugo Gomez sixth. John Wheel in seventh. Andy Graydon, our driver in the wee hours of the morning Sunday in Australia. Andy Graydon is running eighth. Steve Taylor, we haven't seen much of Steve this event so far.
Real quiet. Yeah.
Steve's running ninth, and Boyd Bryson is running 10th. Steve Taylor, in fact, Steve Taylor and Boyd Bryson running 9th and 10th. Even though they're not running on the same team, these two drivers are both from South Africa.
Watch Michael Burt had a quick spin coming out of turn 2. Nothing major there, a minor tap to the wall. Go ahead.
No, now my feelings are hurt. Let's talk about Steve Taylor from South Africa. He's got 50 starts and 2 wins here at Race to Play, including a driver championship. His last event actually was last week in the Formula One cars. So there's another driver.
Formula One. No.
So there's another driver going from the high-end Formula Open Wheelers to the V8 Supercars, from event to event.
Yeah, I was just talking to Steve yesterday about this race. In fact, Steve Taylor is one of our race stewards, so he participates a lot at Race to Play, even though he might not be behind the steering wheel. But he was concerned about this race, that he wasn't going to finish it or he wasn't going to do well. He just didn't feel up to speed. But you know, this type of race, up to speed really is relative. It's all really just comes down to logging the laps and completing the race. And he's running 9th because of it. In the top half of the field, Boyd was directly behind him, and they were running for position. I think Boyd had a quick off.
Now, Boyd Bryson, also from South Africa, although running for a different team from Steve Taylor. Boyd Bryson's running for Springbok Racing, and Steve Taylor's running for MDB Racing. Boyd has 113 starts at Race to Play with 8 wins. And his last event actually was the Champ Cars at Long Beach Grand Prix. gives you an idea of some variety of racing in the 80 or so active series that we have currently at Race2Play. One race, guys doing high-end open wheelers. The next race, they're manhandling these V8 Supercars around Mount Panorama, Bathurst in Australia.
Mike still has a bit. He's still missing his front splitter there. Just nudging every wall he comes across.
Well, see, maybe he thinks this is like Olympic slalom skiing, where you got to nail the gate, each time by.
Wow, he almost nailed that one. He had a dirt track slide going into that tight chicane up top.
He is watching that rally video somebody posted at Race2Play.
So Michael Vert right behind him is for position. Mark's running in 11th, which is down from where he was 10 minutes ago. He was running back up in 8th, but the damage to his car has really cost him some time. Got to be coming near some more pit stops here and a couple more laps. We're probably starting up in the next 3 or 4 laps. What happened to Boyd there? Oh boy.
Wow.
Looks like his internet connection gave him a little fuss.
Well, that's too bad, because I was just about to point out that at 53 laps, 2 hours into an 80-lap race, we still only have one car out.
That's accurate still. Hopefully.
And that is still accurate.
Yeah.
Boyd Bryson maintained his connection, still going.
He might have just had a big screen freeze or something there.
Boyd's running 12th, 1 lap down.
I thought I saw that there. Hugo having some issues. Looks like he was trying to go into pit lane. Oh, yeah. Spun it in the pit access road there.
You can see there's a little chicane there entering the pit lane. And these guys are watching the chicane and needing to get their speed down to the pit speed limit. Otherwise, they'll get a stop-and-go penalty or a drive-through.
This is the closest battle on track. Michael Vert and Mark Carty. Car Brian Johnson in between them.
See, Eduardo's out in front now, it appears. Don't see a gap to Ennis.
No, I'm wondering if Ennis just pit is what it was. That's the reason why his scoring's not showing it yet. So Ennis just coming out of pit lane. Hands the race lead over to Eduardo Prado, but not by much. Prado, 8 seconds.
Yeah, if Prado's strategy so far has been any indicator, he's got one more pit stop.
One more pit stop than Ennis does over the distance of the race. Prado's pitting every 20 laps. Ennis is doing almost every 30.
Right, yeah. Don't contradict me in front of the people.
I was agreeing with you 100%.
Oh, okay.
We're going to keep an eye on these gaps here while watching the battle between Michael and Mark here.
Scoring's come up, so we can see that Ennis is 8.5, almost 9 seconds behind Eduardo.
Well, we had another spinner here. I'm going to see if I can find just by watching this corner. Michael Vert. Just a quick one. around to Mark Carty, though. It was a battle we were watching. He's really struggling there. Again, it's coming. We're getting to that point in the race where everybody's looking at their second pit stop. We're a good 2 hours into this race, so fatigue is going to be playing a pretty large role this last hour. Prado's pulling away from Ennis. Just, I say that, and look what just happened. Prado's had some big trouble.
That's that off-camber turn 2. We've seen several power-on spins in this exact same spot.
Unfortunately for Eduardo, not only did he take his front splitter off, it looks like he's got a flat. Yeah. His right front is flat. And this is going to allow Ennis, of course, to just cruise on past. Back to some live shots here. Eduardo did not make it into pit lane.
And Eduardo is our second casualty.
Yeah, he ended it right there because of that flat tire. That's pretty big. Eduardo was, well, he was the only other competition to Ennis at this point, with Tristan and Kent running full almost 1 minute behind Ennis at this point. That Ennis Dowdy redemption from last year. Maybe he's going to get it.
Yeah.
Ennis is cool as a cucumber. I'm getting it now. Sorry, I'm reading chat. Christy Rude's talking about Ennis the cucumber. Cool as a cucumber, right? Maybe I'm thinking something completely different. So retiree number 2, Eduardo Prado. Not like him at all.
Nope, Eduardo too much into the throttle exiting turn 2. Put into the wall, got a flat tire, and just was not able to make it back around the track. So Eduardo is our second casualty in this race. Only 2 cars out. We're 56 laps in. Ennis has a commanding lead.
That puts him to second.
Zach Olenshaw's in second. Ennis was fairly dominant in this race last year before he suffered a disconnect. In fact, Ennis was the track record holder right up until qualifying today when Tristan took it. So now we have Zach Olenshaw in second. Pinnacle Motorsports driver from the United Kingdom. He has been making his way forward and forward steadily. Running about 37 seconds behind Ennis.
In fact, the big battle was between Zach and Marco Felix, but Marco now a minute and a half behind Zach. So Marco must have had some other issues there. Or, no, he had just pit. That's the problem.
Well, we're in the third hour of a long race, and this is where concentration and focus starts to produce some casualties.
Michael Brewer. I was going to say, keep it on either the gray or the green stuff. Gray or green, you don't want to go for the brown. That was pretty good, though. He kept it halfway under control.
Aiming for that little green landing strip in the middle there.
See a question from Christy in chat. Pole time was 2:08.816, which was a good half a second faster than the track record. So it's a new track record. So question at this point would be, during this final stop that Tristan and Kent do, I'm assuming they're going to do here in the next couple laps. Oh no, they did it 6 laps ago. they can't make it to the end of the race on that. But who'd they hand the car off to? It's got to be in Tristan's hands again, because they're lapping at their fastest laps again.
So this crew is pit again?
Tristan is back in the car and lapping in the 210s. Well, Kent was lapping about 4 seconds a lap slower. So it actually makes Tristan about 2 to 3 seconds a lap faster than Zach, who's running second. There's a 10-second gap between the two cars, so that's gonna be interesting here pretty soon.
I'm sure Zach is going to notice this in a few laps.
And start panicking.
Well,
That's
I
what I
can't say
do.
that. But I remember last year's event. Myself, Tim McArthur, and John Onofre were driving a multi-car team. And after Ennis's disconnect, Steve Davis became the driver to watch. And we're all calling out the gaps and how much we're losing each second, and trying to figure out if we're going to make it to the checkers before it's too late.
Don't pull out there, John.
Coming out of the down. See Tristan
right
squeak
at the top,
by there.
yeah. Look back here and see what happened. Just cooked it into the corner.
Yeah.
It's real bumpy once you get off into the dirt there.
To explain about our saying that Tristan is back in the car, we have a couple of multi-driver teams participating. And in the multi-driver teams, they get together in the same physical location. So we've got 4 drivers, Tristan Bayless, Kent Welker, Charlie Parker, and Andrew Baranek, who are all gathered at Charlie's house right now with 2 PCs, and they're doing live driver swaps. Kent Welker took the middle stint for this team, and after the pit stop, we'd say that Tristan Bayless is back in their team car.
And there's about 6 seconds now between Zach and Tristan. This is for second and third. Zach just pitting, in fact. So Tristan now running second, 42 seconds behind Ennis Dowdy. But Ennis needs to pit still. Ennis's pit, if he does it in 2 more laps, will get him to the end of the race. Tristan still needs to pit again. That's putting Ennis in a really good position.
No, Tristan won't need to pit again.
Well,
he got 30-something out of his
6
first
laps
stint.
ago. Oh, you're right, yeah. My math is just way off.
Tristan took the first stint, and I believe he got 32, 33 laps.
He's had a lot, yeah.
Before he pit. And we are now at 22 laps left in the race.
Yep. Zach back out there, still holding on to third. Let's see where Marco is. They were battling for position, but that's a half a track away. So Zach, Marco must have had some other issues that's had him fall behind, but still running fourth.
Marco running in fourth. He's the last car on the lead lap. Hugo Gomez is a first car lap down.
Ennis right behind Marco. Ennis leading.
There's a final turn coming to the start-finish straight.
Pedro may have an update on Eduardo Prado. Don't imagine that Prado's very happy right now. Looks like Prado made a few changes to his car setup in the final minutes of warm-up, and a completely different car is what he had to drive during the race, and maybe that's the reason why he was having issues.
What sim racer has not done that?
Yeah.
In fact, at one point I had a little note card sitting next to my steering wheel that said, "No last-minute changes."
Don't touch it.
Because right before you're going to take the grid, you're thinking, oh, well, maybe I should drop my wing one more click or something like that, Generally always turns out to be a mistake.
Yeah, Pedro is confirming that Eduardo Prado's pit strategy had to change early in the race due to some altercation with the concrete wall. It was forcing him into an additional pit stop throughout the race distance. Some of your guys in the chat confirming they also have notes on their monitors saying the same thing. So 4 cars left on the lead lap, soon to be 3 if Ennis keeps his speed up here. He's losing a little bit of time to Tristan, but when you have a 40 some odd second lead, you can afford that. Ennis pit a couple laps back on lap 55. So he's going to make it to the end here. We know Tristan took over the car back on lap 50. Yeah, so Ennis can afford to lose 2 seconds a lap here.
So with Ennis crossing the line there, we are 60 laps into the 80 lap race. And a 20 lap run to the checkers. You see Ennis hitting all his marks just about as sharp as you can. The top of the hill leading through these S's here has a really nice rhythm to it, but if you get out of kilter, it's really hard to get it back. But if you're hitting all your marks like we see Ennis doing, this downhill slurry here has a really nice rhythm to it. Coming out to the long downhill straight off of Mount Panorama in Australia. You see Ennis approaching Steve Taylor. Steve Taylor is currently running 9th. 1 lap down. There's a little hill here as you go down to the final turn. It unsettles the car. You have to be a little ginger on the throttle coming out of that second final turn, the penultimate turn. You see Ennis back on the start-finish straight, having got around Steve Taylor. Tristan Bayliss is 37.5 seconds back. Tristan's turning 209s and 210s currently. Ennis is turning 211s. So Tristan's making up a second, 1 to 1.5 to 2 seconds a lap. 19 laps to go. That's 2 seconds a lap. That's 38 seconds.
Get real exciting in the final lap.
And Tristan is currently 37.5 seconds behind Ennis. So I think as we come down to the checkers here, we're going to see a shootout. And we planned it that way just to bring you the most exciting broadcast possible at Race2Play.
Battles going on. Lap down here. Andy in the pits for 7th. Boy, I wonder if Mark's ever going to fix the nose of his car. It looks like he's going to get this position over Andy again. Brings Mark up into 7th. Yeah, there we go. Doesn't look like Mark's done his final pit yet.
No, it has not.
Steve in 9th. Michael Vert running 10th. Bryson in 11th. And Ray. How do I pronounce his last name there, Todd?
Vachon.
Vachon, all right.
The Los Angeles Kings, way back when that hockey team was still wearing purple and gold, had a goaltender named Rogie Vachon.
It's all over my head. I watch racing, that's all I watch.
All right, we'll get Jerry Chen and Joe DiPino on the line, and
yeah.
we'll talk hockey.
Ken Jagger, we haven't even mentioned his name today. Running 13th, he's been quiet. Just keeping the car on the gray stuff. 2 laps down, 13th place.
Ken Jagger's driving with us from the United Kingdom today. His last event was actually a Formula BMW, another open wheel, mid-powered open wheel series.
Brian Johnson still hanging in there. You can see it looks like his car is crabbing a little bit. He must have really whacked the wall at some point. But he's still hanging in there. He's 13 laps down. He's going to soon pass Eduardo Prado for 16th place. Prado, of course, he's out of the race.
See some guys speculating about race strategy. Tristan Bayless, we're virtually certain, has taken his last pit stop and is good to the end.
Of the leaders, those top 4, top 3 that are on the lead lap, they've all completed their final stops. Marco has as well, who's running 4th. It looks like Hugo has, who's running 5th. So really, there's no pit stops that's going to come into play here. The only one that I can think of is Mark Carty, who's running 7th. Took some damage to the front of his car, but he hasn't pit since. And that was a while back. So I believe Mark's going to end up popping into pit lane for a quick splash and go here at the end. Let's see about John Wheel. John had that spin. Lap 57, but it looks like John may be due for a final stop as well. So Tristan is on a rampage here. He is chopping time out of Ennis, down to 33 seconds now.
So that's 4 seconds in the last 2 laps, chopping 2 seconds a lap or so. That's what he needs to do to get right on Ennis's bumper in the final lap.
Running at almost his fastest lap times here. 09.5, 10.1, and 09.9. So he's only a few tenths off his best race lap. There's a guy who can do qualifying laps, lap after lap, for the next 30 minutes. We'll watch it. That Schumacher-esque type racing. Mario Rocha asking about Connor in chat. We'd spoken about Connor earlier in the broadcast. Connor joined the National Guard last year, or this past year, and is off to the next couple months. So Connor was holding on to a record here at Race2Play I believe it is 12 or 13. I'll look it up here in a minute. I'm going to say it's 13 seasons consecutive that he has won at least one championship. And he did do that for this past season here in season 13. We're now in season 14, and he will not be competing in it, so his record is going to be broke at the end of the season.
Yeah. Connor has 16 driver championships. That's third overall. Eduardo Prado, who we watched for a good half the race here, has 17 championships. The most winningest driver at Race2Play, Pete Bunce. Sir Pete. Pete Bunce has the most wins, the most driver championships. He's active at Race2Play as one of the race stewards.
In fact, even Pete Bunce's wife, Judy, has come in to help steward some races. Now, Judy, to the best of my knowledge, has never sat behind the steering wheel of a computer, and even she gets involved in Race2Play. Pete's been around a very long time, and I'm not talking about his age, I'm talking about his sim racing with Race2Play.
Yeah, Pete's one of the earliest Race2Play members. Raced with Tim and myself in the
back in 2003, 2004.
Yeah, and was a part of the original beta crew at Race2Play. One of the earliest members.
Ennis is responding to Tristan's lap times. Ennis last lap ran a 2:11, matching Tristan, but Tristan, of course, you saw that he had to pass a couple cars, lapped cars. This time running another 2:11.3, so only a tenth slower than his 2 laps ago, so we'll see what Tristan does here. I, too, like to be in car for Tristan, so we'll watch him from in-car for a couple laps.
I love the in-car view, but whoever developed this software put the steering wheel on the wrong side.
I agree. It's the reason why I don't race these cars. By the time it's the 2-second gap, so a 2:10.1, another second shaved off. He needs to do more than 2 seconds a lap at this point, though. Just saw somebody. These cars that are a lap down, I have to kind of hunt and peck when I see something change in the scoring.
So we have 15 laps to go, and Tristan is trailing Ennis by 32 seconds. So he needs to do a little better than 2 seconds a lap to catch Ennis by the final lap. And then Zach Oleron-Shaw is about 52 seconds behind Tristan.
Oh, he was just driving that day. See how close he's getting to every wall, using every inch of track. Get it within about 5-6 seconds of Ennis, and then we might run out of time.
Might run out of time, and I would speculate that as the gap gets tinier and tinier,
Ennis will pick it up.
Yeah, as we get down to the last couple of laps here.
Well, if you've been watching this entire race with us, you remember Ennis had a small off about midway, well, not even midway through the race, and it wasn't his doing. It was a lapped car having a quick spin. Ennis had to avoid him, but lost that 6 seconds and the lead at the time to Eduardo Prado. And I'm betting you that's all Tristan is looking for right now is a minor mistake by Ennis, 5-6 second loss, and that'll put Tristan right back into the game. Tristan running at 209.9. Another couple seconds shaved off. That was another almost 2 seconds shaved off Ennis's lead, but still, he needs to do closer to 2.2 seconds a lap to be on Ennis's tail with a lap to go. Scan the field here and see if there's any other battles going on. We know that it's going to be a battle between Ennis and Tristan. Just we got about a 20-minute wait. Shadows have gotten long, haven't they? It looks like that car's crabbing as well. I wonder if Andy's got some bigger damage.
You know, I have to point out 66 laps into a 3-hour race, up and down a twisty mountain surrounded by concrete walls, and we still only have 2 cars out.
You see some cars with some heavy damage, but they're still moving.
Yeah, Charlie Parker is sharing a ride with Andrew Baranek. That is the other multi-driver team that is doing live driver swaps. They're gathered at Charlie's house in California. They named their team for this event the Governators. And in case some of you don't know it or haven't realized it, Arnold Schwarzenegger is the governor of the state of California here in the United States.
That poor guy. Any governor of the state of California is pretty much ending his political career.
The state of California is having some financial difficulties right now, to put it lightly.
In fact, you can read my blog. It was a year and a half ago that I...
the one that's titled "Leaving a Sinking Ship."
Even rats jumped from sinking ships. So yeah, I lived in California my entire life till a year and a half ago, and moved out here to Colorado to hang out with Todd. And we haven't done that. I moved out here, and I still don't see Todd any more than I did when I lived in California.
Now you're just full of crap.
So, subject change. Tristan down to 27 seconds.
Let's examine the California to Colorado move. You move halfway across the country. Oh, what do we have there?
Yeah.
You move halfway across the country, yet stop 30 minutes short of my house.
Yeah, I did do that. We got a traffic jam up top, so it looks like I'm going to have to come down here to Brian, who had gone off and was trying to work his way out of the sand trap. Ken Jagger coming around and joined him. And at that point, the track is pretty much blocked. Felix joined, ended on the spin. Tristan motored through. Oh! Steve Taylor getting into Jagger. It's a big traffic jam. Well, now you put yourself in a really bad spot there, Brian. There we go.
I gotta say, he's doing what the rules tell him to do, though.
He's just
He
waiting.
is off the track.
Yeah.
And he needs to wait until traffic goes by.
And in the heat of the moment, that's sometimes a really hard thing to do, but Brian, level-headed guy, he knows what he needs to do. Oops.
Yeah, so not an ideal situation there, but everybody did what they were supposed to do.
I think that was just a case of a couple sympathy spins for Brian. Nobody had hit him and spun. It was just they saw him and panicked, I think is what it was.
We're all friends here.
Yeah.
So, gap's down to 27 seconds. Tristan in second place, 27 seconds to Ennis Dowdy in first. 12 laps to go. So Tristan is not quite making up the gap he needs to make to catch Ennis by the end.
You know, I find myself rooting for Ennis, considering what happened to him last year. This would be a nice payback for him.
Ennis qualified on the pole with a track record last year and was dominant in the race right up to his disconnect.
Tristan's pushing hard.
Tristan got about a minute 1 gap over the car behind him, which is Zach Ulrenshaw.
Compare some lap times here. Ennis running some mid to high 11s. And Tristan running low 10s. But, you know, that's all Ennis needs to do.
Yeah.
2.5 off the pace of Tristan, and that'll still keep him in the top spot at the end of the race.
We were watching Ennis earlier, and he is driving a real great line, just hitting every mark, not getting out of shape.
Oh, very smooth. Just under 25.4 now gap between Ennis and Tristan.
Now, if you're watching the broadcast live, there's a chat feature where you can all talk to each other. Ennis's proclivity to defend Ferrari at every step has not gone unnoticed. Somebody's rooting for Tristan to hunt down that Ferrari fanboy. We see another guy saying Tristan doesn't really want to win because he remembers Tim threatening to hit him with a strip search after the race.
It was about somebody else strip searching Tristan. Getting one of the stewards to strip search Tristan, yeah. Well, there really are no other battles for position on track. It's the reason why we're just kind of watching this one develop as Tristan whittles away at Ennis's lead. But I think, you know, with 11 laps to go, it's gonna be hard pressed for Tristan to get into passing position.
Yeah, so with 11 laps to go, we have Ennis, Tristan Bayless, and Zach Ulrenshaw running 1, 2, 3. Tristan is 24.5 seconds behind Ennis. Zach is a minute 6 behind Tristan. Marco Felix is the first car a lap down in 4th position. Hugo Gomez in 5th. John Wheel in 6th. Andy Graydon in 7th. Steve Taylor in 8th. Michael Vert in 9th. Mark Carty in 10th position.
Mark finally completing that final stop that he needed to.
We have Andy Graydon in 7th. Andy Graydon driving from Australia. It is actually 4:44 in the morning. 4:44 Sunday morning for Andy. He's been driving the last 2 hours, 45 minutes. He's been blogging about his preparations for this race on his blog at Race2Play. His plan is to finish the race, get a nap, then wake up and watch the real live event coverage on his local TV channels there in Australia.
It's from Ennis's in-car. He still has a 22.7 second lead over Tristan. But it is shrinking.
70 laps in, we've only had 2 cars out. Both bounced it off the concrete walls and retired with suspension problems.
There we go. Brian Johnson just passed Eduardo Prado for position. Eduardo DNF'd out a couple laps back, so Brian making up those laps over time and passed Prado up to 16th now.
Brian, here's your Oscar moment, so you can set your PC to record while we talk about Brian Johnson just passing Eduardo Prado.
There you go, man. I need to make you a T-shirt, Brian. Which reminds me of that outside pass somebody did.
I was just gonna point out Tim's T-shirt in the closet there that says "I passed Tristan Bayless on the outside of Stowe."
Yeah. Never gonna let him live that one down. Speaking of the guy that got passed on the outside, Tristan bringing the gap down to 21 seconds. A pretty big chop of time lopped off on this lap. Between the drivers, it's not like they have radio communication between them. It's just the headlights. And, the rule of thumb is it's used for affirmative responses, yeses and thank yous, and that's pretty much it. So usually when you see the headlights blinking, that's what it's for, not to show disgust. Should not be.
Yes, if you're Morse coding your displeasure with another driver, you're probably going to get a visit from the steward.
Yeah. Either that or the other driver thinks you're telling him he's the greatest guy in the world.
Yeah, let's meet for coffee afterward.
Yeah. So 19 and a half seconds. Either Ennis has slowed up or Tristan's picked it up. Tristan's still running the 209s. Taking some real chances there,
Snuck
too.
right around Jakub Vanacek in the ride going through those downhill S's.
Ennis has slowed up, running into the 12s and 13s.
That was probably I would probably hazard a guess that if the circumstances were a little different and Tristan wasn't chasing Ennis here, maybe might not have picked that spot.
Yeah, it just dropped a big chunk of time down to 16 and a half second lead, so it looks like Ennis made a mistake somewhere.
9 laps to go, 6 seconds. It's right back into reach for Tristan.
Yeah, Tristan is lopping about 2 seconds a lap off.
So at this pace, he'll catch him on the last lap.
Now this is getting interesting. We thought maybe that Tristan was going to run out of time, but excuse me, Ennis had to have had an issue up at the top of the hill this past lap. Look at that, a 5.5 second. Yeah, he ran a much slower lap than he's been doing. So we're going to keep our eye on Ennis and make sure that we catch any drama that's happening there.
So the gap is back within reach for Tristan in second position.
This car doesn't look damaged, so I think that it's just maybe dealing with traffic or something there. Boy, I can't find the right key. Sorry, guys.
Could have been adjusting his cup holder or looking for his sunglasses.
It's possible.
So yeah, with Tristan the Shark circling and smelling the blood up there, you can see he's not going to spend a lot of time waiting behind cars, as we saw him make that move through the downhill.
So he's got some clear track ahead of. Tristan's got clear track. Looks like Ennis has got some clear track. So Tristan's in car down to a 14-second gap now. See, this is Ennis at the final corner. Start-finish line, and then I'll change over to Tristan. That's how close they are. It's actually only a couple corners separating them. actually see both cars. There's Tristan in the background with Ennis. They're on the same straightaway. Zoom. There we go. Some of the guys in chat talking about the pole lap time again. To just the information is it was a 2:08.816, which was a track record again by half a second. In fact, so Tristan took the track record.
In fact, that's these two cars we're watching run down to run down to the end. Ennis was the previous track record holder. Tristan took it in qualifying today.
Ken Jagger in pit lane. I saw, I think it was Michael Vert taking the position away from Mark Carty. I'm wondering if Carty had an issue. Yeah, there we go. Quick spin out of that final corner.
Was it Mark or Marco Felix we saw do that same spin earlier?
I think Mark Carty's perfected it. That was a pretty nice spin and turnaround. No, I think it was Mark Carty that's done it a couple times this race.
See, that's coming onto the start-finish straight where all the photographers are. So I think that was just a little razzle-dazzle for the crowd.
Yeah. So down to a 12-second gap. I think I just said 14-second gap last time we came around this corner. Again, that 2 seconds a lap. 6 laps to go. 6 times 2 equals 12. Close.
Yeah, I think he's going to latch onto his bumper near the last lap here.
The last couple of laps, Ennis has ran a 2:12 flat and a 2:11.9. And we got Tristan running a 2:10 flat and a 2:10 flat. So 2 seconds a lap. I'm still rooting for Ennis.
Not that you're partial or anything. Where's your journalistic integrity?
I don't have it. No, I'm still rooting for Ennis. And I really don't want to strip search Tristan. 11.2 second gap. Ennis has driven pretty much a flawless race. The only minor scratch that he's had during this entire race was having to go off course to avoid Brian Johnson when Brian spun out in front of him. That was it.
See shadows have creeped across the whole track there. We're coming up about 2 hours 55 minutes in this race.
Everybody has completed their final stops. The cars at the pointy end of the field all completed their final stops in that 20 to 30 laps to go window. So everybody's pretty much in their positions where they're going to finish, unless there's any major drama. Now the one in question is for first place, Ennis and Tristan, where Tristan is actually making up enough time each lap to catch Ennis on that final lap. Catching and passing, two different things. it is a 10-second gap between Ennis and Tristan. 10-second flat. It changed to an 8.8-second gap now. That's how much time Tristan's making up every sector. Just big chunks. I'm watching from Tristan's in-car, waiting to see where Tristan can start spotting Ennis ahead of him a little bit. I think on these longer straights you can probably see him. 2 seconds. Ennis coming up to that kink. Tristan coming up to the kink. I don't know which one of these guys to put the camera on. Lost Jacob, because I don't know how to pronounce it. 7.4 seconds as they cross the start-finish line. Ennis and then Tristan again. This is just closing up. So we got 4 laps to go.
At this pace, I would say that that final downhill run is going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah. Updated every time we hit a sector line there. The running order, Ennis, Tristan in second, Zach in third, Mario Felix fourth, Hugo Gomez fifth, John Wheel in sixth, and then I'll let Todd take the rest.
That's Andy Graydon in seventh, Steve Taylor in eighth, Mark Carty in ninth, Michael Vert in 10th. Vert is 2 laps down. Boyd Bryson in 11th, Ray Vachon in 12th, Ken Jagger in 13th. The multi-driver team of Charlie Parker and Andrew Baranek is running 14th. Jakob Vinacek in 15th, Brian Johnson 16th.
I think that's going to stay the same there. Brian's not going to be able to catch up to Jakob. 5.5 second gap.
Yeah, Tristan might have a slight advantage here. We've talked about Tristan and Kent Welker being one of the 2 multi-driver teams who are gathered together at the same house for live driver swaps. But in that scenario, you have teammates who can also monitor the race and call out the gaps. Ennis is driving solo and does not have a voice in his ear feeding him the data.
Yeah, and the fact that Tristan actually had a 45-minute breather.
True.
He was able to step away from the computer, use the restroom. Ennis started this race 3 hours ago and hasn't done anything but this for the past 3 hours.
Gap's down to 4.3.
There we go. Now we're seeing the name of Ennis right ahead. So this is really going to light a fire in Tristan's seat. If he hasn't already had that fire. He's been flying. So.
Ennis has been watching the gaps and looking in that rear view mirror for the first sighting.
finish line here. It's 2 to go. Ennis ran across some lap traffic. Yep, Ken Jagger directly ahead. So they're actually on their 78th lap. Oh boy.
Now this is painful for Ennis.
So he's completed 78 laps, 2 to go here. 2.3 second gap now. And I'm wondering if Tristan's going to have as difficult a time getting past Ken Jagger. No, because Ken's right on the straight over here.
Tristan with his
Oh,
eyes
look at
there.
that. Yep. Sometimes the second guy in line gets the easier pass.
It could be that Ken was just concentrating on his braking points and whatnot, and he didn't notice that Ennis was right there in the passing position.
Once he saw that the leader was getting past, then he let the second place guy go by real easy. 2.3 second gap. Ennis's rear bumper. Lap and a half to go here. 1.8 seconds. Pretty amazing drive by Tristan, how much time he's made up in this last segment of the race. And I'm not going to call out the gaps anymore because it's pretty much non-existent. You see both cars. That's for sure. So this is going to be the beginning of the final lap here. 1 lap to go. P1 and P2 are less than a second apart. Ask for any more than that.
After 3 hours and 79 laps of racing, first and second position comes down to a nose to bumper battle.
Oh, Ennis got real out of shape. Lost a big chunk of track there.
It's that off-camber turn 2
Yeah.
where we've seen so many guys get squirrely at that point.
I'll watch this from the outside so we can actually see it here.
Now Ennis is in guard the line position.
Yep. It isn't going to be here where a move's made. It's going to be on that back straight, unfortunately. He's bouncing it off the wall. He is driving it. Parker, quick spin there. Nice to see if he took his time to make that U-turn and not get in the way of this race.
See, Tristan wants to be tucked right up there as we come to the downhill run.
Where that draft is going to come into play. And it's going to hold that right side.
The right side's hard to hold through that kink, though. But outside is not really a good place to be in that kink either.
Oh, squeezing him.
Somebody's going to wind up in some dirt.
And it's held on to the lead. Tristan can get on the throttle. Look at that.
There's another one. There's another tricky throttle on this turn.
Final braking zone here.
Oh. Go.
It's a drag. Oh, I don't know who got it.
Geez.
Tristan actually took the win. .078 of a second.
Right there in the final turn.
Watch this as a replay here. A bunch of door rubbing there. That's great racing. Drag race to that finish line. Tristan did take it.
Congratulations to Tristan Bayliss and Kent Welker for running a fantastic race. That's painful for Ennis. I feel badly for him.
Yeah, he definitely deserved that win. But you got to give Tristan the huge props for the amount of ground he made up in just the last 20 laps of that race. Watching Zach coming in, hopefully to finish third. I mean, that's how far back he is. He was 1 minute and 47 seconds behind the leaders.
So after 3 hours of racing, it came down to 78 thousandths of a second at the checkers.
And I bet you Tristan just broke his monitor. I'm sorry, Ennis just broke his monitor in disgust of that one.
Ennis drove a great race. He just needed another 100 feet.
Yep. So this is Zach coming around the final corners to claim third. He's guaranteed third at this point. Marco Felix did finish fourth with Hugo Gomez behind him, and they were a lap down, so even if Zach would have DNF'd there, they would have had it.
Well, I tell you, I have a lot of weird, conflicting emotions right now.
Yeah,
definitely. Ennis had such a great race there, and after his disco last year, after being so dominant, to lose it like that, I mean, what an exciting finish. What a great drive by Tristan there at the end. What an exciting finish. I feel badly for Ennis, who is such a great guy, if you participate with anything with him at Race2Play. But what a great race and what a great finish. After 3 hours of racing, the multi-driver team of Tristan Bayliss and Kent Welker takes the victory, with Tristan Bayliss driving the final stint and making the winning pass in the very last corner and beating second place Ennis Dowdy to the finish line by 78 thousandths of a second.
And Brian Johnson did get to finish the race.
Ennis Dowdy finished second. Zach Olenshaw finished third. Marco Felix fifth. You see it up there on the screen.
Sorry, I just took it off the screen, but yeah. I'm just giving a full rundown of the order there.
You're just bound and determined to punk me, aren't you?
Yeah.
John Whelan sixth. Andy Graydon seventh. Steve Taylor finished eighth. Mark Carty ninth. Michael Vert finished 10th.
It was a fantastic race, and the drama leading to that final lap. Boy, I mean, you can't ask for any better race than that. 78 thousandths of a second separating the first two finishers.
You know, a race that close, you can it's easy to look at this pivotal moment, that pivotal moment, but when it's decided by 78 thousandths of a second, basically everything you did for the last 3 hours counted. Every little wiggle counted. What a great race.
The Governators.
All right, well, that was a great race. That was the Bathurst 500K, won by the multi-driver team of Tristan Bayliss and Kent Welker. Bringing home first place with a exciting straight line finish, 78 thousandths of a second over Ennis Dowdy in second place. So that's the Bathurst 500K presented by Race2Play.com. I'm Todd Weiss, and I've been sitting here with Tim McArthur for the duration. Thank you, everybody.